I've always had this thing. I notice the tiny shifts, the way someone avoids eye contact a beat too long, how laughter fades half a second earlier than it used to. And lately, something in Leo had changed, not in an obvious screaming way. It was subtle, like a curtain slowly falling in a room I used to feel safe in. And Bianca, my cousin, practically my sister, she'd gone cold too. One day we were planning weekend getaways, and the next she acted like a stranger who owed me nothing. That night felt ordinary. Leo had just rushed into the shower, mumbling something about a last-minute meeting. I wasn't trying to find anything. I was just reaching between the couch cushions for the remote when his phone screen lit up. And there it was, a message from Bianca. Wish she didn't exist. My name wasn't in it, but it didn't have to be. I stared at the words like they were carved in stone. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just tapped, screenshot, emailed it to myself, closed the screen, breathed, and then I smiled. Not the kind of smile you give someone you love, the kind that lives in the corner of your mouth when you realize everything's about to change. I kept reading. Every flirty message, every excuse they built to see each other behind my back. They really thought I'd never find out, that I'd stay clueless, smiling at family lunches while they played pretend. But if they wanted to share something so badly in secret, I'd help them, just not in the way they expected. I spent the rest of the night in silence, not the devastated, rocking back and forth kind. It was colder than that, focused. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat on the balcony, and stared out at the city lights while my brain rewrote everything I thought I knew. Every dinner we'd had, every story Bianca told me, every fake, "You're so lucky to have him." I wasn't unraveling, I was plotting. And somewhere between sip 3 and 4, I stopped seeing them as people who hurt me. I started seeing them as characters in a scene I was about to direct. The next morning, I played the role they expected. Sweet, forgiving, oblivious. I kissed Leo on the cheek, asked if he wanted breakfast. I even sent Bianca a funny meme, like nothing had happened. And they bought it. God, they bought it so easily. That's when I knew I had them. I wasn't going to throw a tantrum. I wasn't going to beg for answers or fight for scraps of honesty. No. I was going to let them keep playing their little game, while I built the stage for the grand finale. And the funny thing is, I felt powerful, not broken, not small, just sharp. Sharper than I'd ever felt before. They thought they'd cornered me into silence, into shame, but they had no idea who they were dealing with. I wasn't planning revenge for the sake of drama. I was planning it because it brought me peace. Because watching them squirm would be the closure I needed. And deep down, I knew exactly where it would all begin. With an invitation. It wasn't even a week later when the perfect opportunity landed right in my lap. A big family lunch at my aunt's place. Leo and Bianca would both be there, of course. I was so lucky, after all. When the invite came through, I didn't hesitate. I smiled as I typed back, "Wouldn't miss it." And then I offered to help with the setup, bring wine, fold napkins, whatever they needed. I even suggested doing a cute seating chart, to make it feel more organized. They had no idea. As I looked over the guest list, I could already see it playing out like a scene from a movie. Bianca on one side of the table, Leo right next to her, and me sitting directly across. A front row seat for the stars of the show. I imagined the look on their faces when they realized I'd placed them together. That flash of panic they'd try to hide with forced smiles. I wasn't just preparing for lunch. I was laying the foundation for a reckoning. One bite of potato salad at a time. They thought it might be awkward, sitting there so close, so exposed. That's what made it perfect. Awkward wasn't a risk to me. It was a strategy. Let them sweat through it. Let the guilt cling to their skin like summer heat. I wasn't going to confront them with fire and fury. No, I had something colder in mind. They wanted to sneak around behind my back? Fine. I'd make sure their truth was front and center, with family as the audience and betrayal as the main course. When I showed up at my aunt's house that Sunday, everything looked exactly as it should. The backyard was strung with fairy lights, The long table was set with those floral plates she always used for special occasions, and the smell of rosemary chicken floated through the air like a memory. Everyone was smiling, hugging, catching up, the usual noise of family pretending everything's perfect. But beneath my smile, something quieter buzzed. Today wasn't just lunch, it was my stage, and I was ready. I greeted everyone like normal. Even kissed Bianca on the cheek. Her perfume almost knocked the breath out of me. Leo pulled me into a half hug, barely meeting my eyes. Perfect. They thought I didn't know, that I was just playing the doting girlfriend and sweet cousin. I asked my aunt where she wanted me and helped set out glasses and fold napkins like it was the most important job in the world. What no one knew was that each plate I laid down was part of something bigger. This wasn't chaos. It was choreography. When it came time to arrange the seating, I played it cool. I just thought it would be easier if everyone had a spot. That way, no awkward shuffling. My aunt loved the idea. I pulled out my little place cards, all handwritten, all designed to place Leo and Bianca side by side, and right across from me. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. Let them sit together, let their knees brush under the table, let them whisper and worry. I was done hiding in corners. Now it was their turn to squirm in the spotlight. I watched them settle into their seats like two kids caught sneaking candy, pretending they hadn't been up to anything. Bianca gave a soft laugh when she realized where she was sitting, like it was just a funny coincidence. Leo tried to act casual, but his fingers kept fidgeting with his fork, eyes darting toward me, then back to his plate. I just smiled. Not too much, just enough to make them wonder. That's the thing about guilt. You don't have to speak it out loud. It sweats through people's skin. The rest of the family chatted around us, completely unaware that a different kind of heat was simmering at the center of the table. My uncle was telling some story about a lost suitcase. My cousin's baby was screaming over a dropped pacifier. And still, all I could hear was the quiet panic in Leo's voice when he asked Bianca if she wanted water. Like even small talk might betray them. I leaned back, took a sip of wine, and let it all unfold. Every second was delicious. There was something almost poetic about it. The very people who'd whispered behind my back were now trapped in front of me, smiling through their teeth, flinching at every innocent question. And no one else noticed. Yet. But they would. The tension was starting to spread like a slow leak. One cousin raised an eyebrow. My aunt glanced between us a little too long. Good. Let them feel it. Let the cracks show before anything's said, because I wasn't there to expose them. Not yet. I was there to watch them crack themselves open. I kept my energy light, almost bubbly, like I was genuinely having the best time. I passed the bread basket, complimented the salad, even made a joke about my uncle's second helping. All the while, I watched Bianca and Leo try not to look at each other too often, or too long. Their shoulders were stiff, their voices too careful. It was like watching two people sitting on a live wire, praying no one noticed the sparks. But I did. I saw every flicker. And I wasn't about to let them forget it. Every move I made had purpose. Every smile was calculated. When I asked Bianca if she'd help me pour drinks, she nearly dropped the pitcher. When I passed Leo the butter, my hand brushed his, ice cold. The irony wasn't lost on me. This was the same man who used to trace circles on my back in bed. Now he couldn't meet my eyes. The silence between them grew louder with each course, while the rest of the table talked over it. I didn't need a microphone. I had tension, and it was doing all the work. By the time dessert was served, the air was thick enough to slice with a knife. A few relatives had started to pick up on it, not quite understanding, but sensing something was off. Whispers began to rise between bites of pie. My aunt leaned toward me and asked if everything was okay. I just nodded and said, "Perfect, actually." And it was, because the setup was complete. The scene was set. Now all I had to do was press just a little harder and let the truth come spilling out. I waited until everyone had taken their first few bites of dessert, when their guard was down and their mouths were full. That's when I leaned in, all sugar and light, and said, "Hey, Bianca, weren't you and Leo at that new cafe last week? I thought he said he had to work late that day." Her spoon paused midair, Leo's shoulders tensed. I didn't look away. I just tilted my head, like someone genuinely trying to piece together a silly little timeline. Innocent curiosity. No heat, no accusation. Bianca blinked too many times before answering. Oh, maybe? I don't think so. I mean, not just us. Leo cleared his throat like his life depended on it. Yeah, I think that was a different day. The stammering, the sideways glances, it was better than I imagined. And no one at the table was missing it now. My cousin Sarah narrowed her eyes. My aunt stopped chewing. I sipped my wine again, calmly, like someone watching a show they've already seen but still enjoy every twist. Then I went for round 2, still smiling. Leo, remember when I found that perfume on your jacket? It smelled a lot like Bianca's. I swear, I almost asked if you two were hugging behind my back. I chuckled, lightly, playfully. But I could practically feel Bianca shrink in her seat. Leo stared down at his plate like it might swallow him whole. That's the thing about guilt. It doesn't need to be dragged out. Just a few gentle pokes, and it oozes right to the surface for everyone to see. By now, the table had gone quieter. Not silent, just that kind of quiet where everyone pretends to chew slower, hoping not to miss the next line. I could feel it building, the unease stretching itself across plates and napkins, weaving through the room like a draft no one could place. Bianca kept fidgeting with her necklace, and Leo suddenly had nothing to say. My aunt, ever the peacemaker, tried to change the subject, but even her voice trembled. Everyone was starting to see it. Something was wrong, and it was sitting right there, between the dessert and the truth. I leaned back, crossed my legs, and laughed at a story someone else tried to tell, something about a neighbor's dog. But I wasn't really listening. I was watching. Leo wiped his brow even though it wasn't hot. Bianca barely touched her food. Their bodies were screaming what their mouths wouldn't say. It wasn't just about catching them, it was about making them realize they were already caught. And I didn't need to throw a single accusation. I was simply asking questions. Innocent ones, with just enough memory behind them to sting. Then came the whispers. The ones not meant for me, but loud enough for me to hear. Did she say Leo and Bianca were at a cafe? Wait, did she just say the perfume smelled like Bianca's? My cousin on the far end gave me a look, not pity, not concern. Something else. Recognition, as if she was starting to connect the dots too. That's all I needed. I didn't come to blow up the room. I came to let them unravel on their own. And they were doing exactly that, knot by knot. I kept my tone light, my smile warm, like I was just making conversation. But every word was deliberate, every glance timed. You two really do have such similar taste, I said, cutting into my pie. In cafes, in music, in people, apparently. Leo choked on his sip of water. Bianca's fork clinked against her plate as it slipped from her fingers. Someone near the end of the table stifled a gasp. I didn't react, just kept eating. Let them process. Let the weight of every unsaid truth settle into the tablecloth like spilled wine. What struck me most was how alone they looked, despite being right beside each other. There was no comfort in their closeness now. Just panic. Fear. The kind that comes from realizing the ground beneath you isn't solid anymore. And all I had to do was keep asking questions, smiling, playing the innocent. I didn't need to explode. I didn't need to cry or beg. Their guilt was louder than any accusation I could have made. And with every passing second, they were giving themselves away, piece by piece. I glanced around the table, catching eyes, reading faces. Some were confused. Some were watching like it was a soap opera playing out live. But the ones I cared about, they were starting to see me, really see me, not as the girl being cheated on, but as the woman in full control. I'd waited for this moment, and it was almost time. Almost, but not quite yet. Because the next move had to be unforgettable. Once the plates were cleared and everyone leaned back in that full-bellied, tipsy kind of lull, I struck. I clinked my glass gently, drawing a few lazy glances, and said with the sweetest tone, Hey, I have an idea. Let's play a game. Someone groaned, but I smiled wider. Nothing wild, I promise. Just, let's each go around and share something we've been hiding, silly or serious, just for fun. A few chuckles rose from the table. One uncle confessed he'd been secretly feeding the neighbor's cat. My cousin admitted to breaking the garden gnome last month. Everyone laughed. At first, the mood loosened. People thought it was innocent, and that's exactly why it worked. Because games, especially harmless ones, don't come with warning labels. They disarm people. They make you drop your guard. Even Leo cracked a nervous smile, probably thinking I was done, that I'd had my little moment and moved on. But I hadn't. Not even close. Because now the circle was coming back around, and the spotlight was headed right for him. When the laughter died down and the rhythm of the game settled, I turned to Leo with the softest gaze I could summon. "Come on, love," I said, gently nudging him with my elbow. "I'm sure you've got something to confess." I let the words hang there, weightless but sharp. His smile faded. His mouth opened, then closed again. Bianca went stiff beside him. And just like that, the room changed. The lightness vanished. The silence swelled. It was his turn, and he knew it. He looked at me like I'd just handed him a live grenade. Eyes wide, lips parted, heartbeat practically visible in his neck. I don't really have anything," he muttered, voice too quiet, too shaky. "Nothing comes to mind." The lie was so thin I could see straight through it. Around us, the table grew heavy with silence. Not just the awkward kind, the kind that tastes like metal in your mouth. No one dared to speak. No one moved. They were waiting, watching, sensing something just beneath the surface. Bianca shifted in her seat, crossing and uncrossing her legs like she couldn't get comfortable in her own skin. I didn't even look at her. I stayed focused on Leo, tilting my head just slightly. "Nothing?" I asked, like I was genuinely surprised. "Not even something small? A white lie? A little secret you've been meaning to let go of?" My tone was light, teasing. But the message behind it sliced clean. He couldn't find the words. His mouth kept opening, then falling shut. He was trapped, and we both knew it. Then it happened. Bianca slammed her hand against the table and blurted, "This is sick, Marina. You planned this." Her voice cracked, high and panicked, slicing through the quiet like glass. All eyes turned to her. Forks froze midair. My aunt gasped. Leo's head snapped toward her like she'd just set off a bomb, which, in a way, she had. Because that one sentence was all it took. The room didn't need proof. Her outburst was the proof, and I hadn't said a single word of accusation. I stood slowly. No rush, no drama, just calm, deliberate movement, like I was getting up to offer more wine. All eyes followed me, even Bianca's wide and furious, like a cornered animal. I reached into my bag, pulled out my phone, and tapped it a few times. Then, without a word, I turned the screen toward the table. The messages were there in full color: flirtation, plans, secrets, and that one beautiful line, "Wish he didn't exist." The silence was total, electric. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. The screenshots spoke louder than anything I could have screamed. Leo stared at the phone like it was a weapon. Bianca's face crumpled, her jaw trembling, one hand clutching her chest. Across the table, someone whispered, "Oh my God." I could hear a fork clatter to a plate. It was all happening exactly as I imagined, but better. Because the truth wasn't just coming out. It was detonating. And they were the ones who lit the fuse. No one laughed anymore, except me. Quiet, measured, not cruel, just satisfied. The kind of laugh that rises when everything clicks into place. I slid my phone back into my purse, stood there for a moment, and met each face at the table. I wasn't the victim anymore. I wasn't the naive girlfriend or the trusting cousin. I was the architect. And they were just two people watching their lies unravel under the weight of their own choices. For a second, it felt like time had stopped. No one moved. No one spoke. Then Leo stood up so fast, his chair screeched against the tile, muttering something about needing to leave. His voice cracked. He couldn't even look at me. Bianca was crying now. Not those quiet, graceful tears you see in movies, but the ugly kind. Loud, snotty, full-body sobs. My aunt tried to comfort her, but even she looked unsure, like she was reevaluating everything. Because this wasn't just betrayal, this was betrayal at the table. I stayed where I was, calm as ever, watching it all unfold like a scene I'd written. And honestly, I had. Every gasp, every whispered, "How could they?" played out exactly how I hoped. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Truth has a way of filling a room all by itself, and now that it was out, it was never going back in. Leo made it halfway to the door before my uncle stopped him with a glare. "Sit down," he said cold. "You're not leaving her mess behind." And for the first time, Leo looked scared. I finished the last sip of my drink, letting the warmth settle into my chest like peace. Actual peace. I turned to the room and said, "I just thought the family should know what kind of love we've been feeding at this table." And then I smiled. Not a smirk, not a grin, just a simple, sincere smile. Because I meant it. They'd made me feel like I didn't belong, like I was the outsider in my own story. But now I wasn't the one left in the cold. I could feel the weight of every eye in the room, but it didn't make me shrink. If anything, it made me stand taller. This wasn't shame. This was freedom. For once, I wasn't carrying their secrets. They were. And they'd have to explain them to every cousin, every aunt, every uncle who now sat in stunned silence, trying to piece together how long it had been going on. The whispers started again, hushed, urgent, stinging. Bianca tried to speak, but her voice caught in her throat. There was nothing left to say. Not now. I looked down at my plate, untouched dessert, melting at the edges. How fitting. A sweet ending, left behind and forgotten, just like them. I picked up my bag, straightened my jacket, and said goodbye to no one in particular. My aunt tried to reach for my hand as I passed. "Marina," she whispered. I paused, looked at her, and gave a soft nod. Not angry, not bitter, just done. I didn't need their pity. I didn't need their sympathy. I had what I came for, clarity. And the silence they now sat in, that was louder than any apology. By the time I stepped outside, the air felt different. Clean. Cool. Like stepping out of a stuffy theater after the final scene. I walked to my car slowly, savoring the breeze, the sky, the sense of weightlessness. And then I remembered, the engagement party refund had just hit my account that morning. I'd been too busy to check until now. I opened the app, smiled at the number, and booked myself a spa afternoon before I even pulled out of the driveway. As I lay back in the massage chair later that afternoon, wrapped in a robe that smelled like eucalyptus and freedom, I let myself breathe for the first time in weeks. No more second-guessing, no more wondering if I was imagining things, no more pretending to be okay while everyone else played dumb. The quiet hum of soft music and the faint trickle of a fountain outside were the only sounds I needed now. I didn't need to be consoled. I didn't need revenge. I'd already won the only way that mattered, by walking away intact. Let them talk. Let them try to rewrite the story. At the end of the day, they were the ones who lied, who looked me in the eye and chose to betray me anyway. And now they'd sit with that truth, long after the chairs were pushed in and the dishes cleared. Let them try to explain why Bianca couldn't stop crying, why Leo disappeared so quickly. I didn't need to defend myself. The receipts were real. The audience had seen it. And the curtain had already fallen. They made me doubt my place in the family. For a long time, I thought maybe I was the one on the outside. Too sensitive, too suspicious, too much. But now, it's clear. I never needed to fit into their circle. I was never meant to, because they broke it the moment they betrayed me. And as I sipped cucumber water with my phone on Do Not Disturb, I knew exactly where I stood. Centered, calm, and far, far above the wreckage they left behind.